If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Epictetus. What if I told you the very thing you spend your life avoiding is the one thing that could set you free? Discomfort. We dress it in different names: stress, inconvenience, fatigue, boredom, fear, and we run from it like it's poison. We build lives engineered to dodge it. We cushion our routines, distract our senses, and anesthetize our minds with comfort. But in doing so, we dull the edge of our spirit. We trade potential for peace, growth for ease, wisdom for numbness. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, we weaken. We weaken not just in body, but in character, in presence, in soul. The modern mind has been trained to flinch, trained to avoid the cold, the silence, the strain, the uncertainty. But what if you trained it to do the opposite? What if discomfort became your practice, your ritual, your guide? What if your mind could be trained to crave it? Not in a masochistic way, not out of self-punishment or bravado, but from a place of deeper knowing that on the other side of discomfort lies freedom. This is the teaching of the Stoics, and this is the journey we begin today. There is an illusion we are all sold, that if you can just arrange your life perfectly, avoid pain completely, and surround yourself with ease consistently, you'll finally be happy. But this is a lie, a trap disguised as safety. The more we seek comfort as our highest aim, the more fragile we become. And fragility is not freedom. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, ruled the most powerful empire on earth. He had access to every indulgence imaginable, and yet his private writings, now known as meditations, are not about luxury or pleasure. They are about inner stillness, endurance, sacrifice, discipline. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This was not philosophy as theory. This was philosophy as armor. To the Stoics, discomfort was not the enemy. It was the forge, the thing that tested and tempered their character. To run from it was to run from yourself. To face it was to become what they called prohairesis, a person of rational will, aligned with nature, governed not by whims or reactions but by principle. You are not here to become more comfortable. You are here to become more capable. Let's be honest, most people today are mentally soft, not because they lack intelligence or talent or ambition, but because they have never been trained to endure. Their spirits haven't been seasoned by intentional hardship. And so when life becomes turbulent, when rejection hits, when plans fall through, when uncertainty knocks, they panic, they collapse, they search for someone or something to blame. But the Stoic doesn't collapse. The Stoic breathes, stands firm, observes, responds, because he or she has practiced this moment 1,000 times, in cold showers, in early mornings, in silent reflection, in moments of denial, in the sacred ritual of chosen discomfort. You see, true resilience is not built in the moment of crisis. It is built in the days before, when no one is watching, when you could take the easy path but don't. That is where character is formed. Quietly, repetitively, deliberately. The Stoics believed in voluntary hardship, a practice that modern minds often reject as unnecessary or extreme. But Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, would routinely dress in ragged clothes, eat coarse bread, and sleep on the floor, not because he had to, but because he chose to. He wanted to remind himself, "Is this the condition I feared?" He trained his soul not to be dependent on luxury, approval, or comfort, because he knew all those things were temporary. All external things are borrowed. The only thing you truly own is your ability to choose how you respond. That is what we're here to train. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you chose inconvenience over ease? When was the last time you sat in stillness without reaching for a screen? When did you last push your limits, not to impress, but to grow? When have you embraced a challenge, not because you had to, but because you needed to? If the answer is distant or never, it's not your fault. You live in a culture that treats every discomfort as a problem to be solved, not a teacher to be welcomed. But what if you started treating discomfort not as the enemy, but as a mirror? Because here's the truth: discomfort reveals you. When you are cold, tired, or anxious, your mask slips, your ego dissolves, and what you're left with is you, raw, honest, unadorned. And that is where the work begins. That is where transformation begins. So today we step into that space, the uncomfortable, the unfamiliar, the forge. Not because we enjoy suffering. The Stoics never glorified pain. They glorified strength. They pursued the kind of inner fortitude that could not be bought, taught, or stolen, only earned. And it was earned through the conscious embrace of difficulty. Every moment of resistance is a chance, a choice. Will you shrink or rise? Will you escape or endure? Will you react or respond? This is not a single decision. It is a way of being, a training of the mind, body and soul to lean into the things others avoid, and in doing so to become something others are not: unbreakable. So let this be the beginning, a new relationship to discomfort, a new framework for power, a new philosophy for the modern warrior, forged not in comfort, but in clarity. You are capable of so much more than you think. You just haven't suffered enough to see it yet. Section 1. The Discomfort Reflex, and why you must reverse it. You have been taught, perhaps without knowing, to fear discomfort, to recoil from it instinctively, like a hand pulling away from fire. And in some cases, this is wise. Pain has its purpose. But when this reflex extends beyond physical harm and begins to dominate your emotional, mental, and spiritual life, it becomes a cage. You don't reach for your phone because it's urgent. You reach for it because silence is uncomfortable. You don't delay the hard conversation because it's impossible. You delay it because confrontation is uncomfortable. You don't procrastinate because you're lazy. You procrastinate because deep work is uncomfortable. This reflex, to avoid what makes us uneasy, has been hardwired over years of repetition. And unless you consciously reverse it, it will own you. It will shape your choices, dull your edge, and weaken your soul. The Stoics knew this, and they refused to be ruled by it. Epictetus was born into slavery. He had no power, no wealth, no status. Yet he taught that no external condition, not even chains, could rob a person of their freedom. Why? Because true freedom begins with what you choose to resist and what you choose to endure. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life, he said. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Discomfort lies beyond your control, only if you view it as enemy. But what if you trained your mind to view it as signal? Imagine that, instead of backing away from discomfort, you leaned into it. You feel fear before a difficult task. That's the direction. You feel tension in a conversation. That's the opening. You feel resistance to waking early, training hard, being honest. That's the path. The discomfort reflex can be rewritten, slowly, intentionally, but only through exposure. This is why the Stoics practiced voluntary hardship, to bring discomfort closer, to make it familiar, to train their nervous system not to flinch. Seneca, again was clear in his letters to Lucilius. Set aside certain days on which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition I feared? What is Seneca doing here? He's disarming the discomfort reflex through controlled exposure. He's rehearsing poverty, rejection, scarcity, not because he desires them, but because he refuses to be owned by them. This is the root of Stoic courage, not bravado, not reckless risk, but the slow mastery of fear by turning toward it, again and again, until it loses its power. You have to see discomfort not as a punishment, but as a teacher, a mirror, a message. The discomfort you feel is revealing something about your attachments. If cold water terrifies you, it reveals an attachment to warmth. If silence disturbs you, it reveals an attachment to stimulation. If solitude frightens you, it reveals an attachment to validation. Every point of pain is pointing to something inside you that is still dependent, still clinging, still untrained. The Stoics' mission is not to eliminate discomfort, but to become undisturbed by it. And that only happens when you expose yourself to it, deliberately, repeatedly, and with full awareness. This is how you reverse the reflex. But let's be clear, this isn't about becoming hardened or indifferent. It's about becoming resilient. The goal is not numbness, it is equanimity. That sacred middle ground where you are fully alive, fully feeling, yet entirely composed. To walk into discomfort without panic, to experience difficulty without complaint, to face fear without surrender. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Revoking that reflex, that automatic judgment, this is where your power lives, and it begins with training, daily, not in the extreme, not in grand heroic gestures, but in small moments, repeated with intention. When the alarm rings early, get up. When the air is cold, don't flinch. When the task is dull, do it with full presence. When the urge to escape arises, stay. Each act becomes a vote, not just for discipline, but for freedom. So ask yourself now, where does discomfort rule you? Is it in your body? The unwillingness to sweat, to tire, to ache? Is it in your mind? The dread of silence, focus, solitude? Is it in your heart? The fear of rejection, truth, or failure? Wherever it is, go there, gently, consistently, willingly. Because what you resist persists, but what you enter, you begin to own. Reverse the reflex. Crave what others avoid. Embrace what others flee. Love the moments that make you stronger. Because in a world of comfort addicts, the person who can sit calmly in the fire, even for a moment, becomes untouchable. Section 2. Principle of exposure. Rewire your brain's response. You don't overcome discomfort by thinking about it. You overcome it by walking straight into it, again and again, until it no longer controls you. This is the principle of exposure, the quiet repetition of choosing challenge, so the challenge no longer feels threatening. At first your mind resists. It screams, it bargains, it floods you with reasons to avoid the cold, the silence, the effort. That's normal. The brain's default wiring favors safety, predictability, conservation, and yet growth never happens where the mind feels safe. This is why voluntary exposure is essential, because if you wait for the discomfort to come on its own terms, you'll always feel ambushed. But when you go to it on purpose, something powerful happens. It loses its teeth. It becomes familiar. It becomes yours. Think of a soldier training before battle. He doesn't wait until the war begins to strengthen his body. He doesn't wait until chaos erupts to prepare his mind. He exposes himself to the very conditions that others hope to avoid, so that when the moment comes, he meets it calmly. The Stoic does the same. This is why they practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They visualized adversity in vivid detail, not to become anxious, but to become ready. They imagined the death of loved ones, the loss of possessions, the sting of betrayal, the decline of health, the arrival of hardship, because to anticipate suffering is to lessen its sting, and to expose the mind to worst-case scenarios is to build a heart that can hold anything. He robs present ills of their power, who has perceived their coming beforehand. Seneca. This is the work, exposing the mind to what it fears until it no longer trembles. There's neuroscience behind this. Every time you face a discomfort voluntarily, your brain changes. It rewires. The fear center, the amygdala, begins to respond differently. What once felt like a threat becomes neutral. Your tolerance increases. Your ability to remain calm under stress expands. This is called habituation, the process by which repeated exposure lowers emotional reactivity. But here's the key: it only works if the exposure is voluntary. If it's forced, if it feels like punishment, the mind resists harder. But if it's chosen, if it's done with intention, the discomfort becomes training, and training transforms you. So how do you practice exposure? You start small, but you start daily. Not with extreme measures, but with small sacred discomforts. You choose the cold shower, not because it's heroic, but because it builds discipline. You speak the truth, not because it's easy, but because you fear dishonesty more. You walk when you could ride. You sit with silence when you could scroll. You fast when you could feast. These moments are not about deprivation. They are about deprogramming the mind from its automatic avoidance of effort. The Stoics weren't trying to suffer. They were trying to own themselves. Every time you act in defiance of comfort, you reclaim your power. Let's be honest. Most people live in a cage of subtle dependencies. They can't sit still without noise. They can't face failure without shame. They can't experience tension without escape. This isn't because they're weak, it's because they've never practiced. They've never taught their nervous system that it's safe to feel pressure, safe to sweat, safe to be unsure, safe to be uncomfortable. Your nervous system is plastic. It learns, and every act of exposure teaches it something. It says, this is survivable. This is bearable. I don't need to run. And then day by day, the threshold shifts. What once caused panic now causes presence. What once triggered avoidance now activates focus. What once seemed unbearable now feels like fuel. This is the quiet transformation that no one sees, but everyone eventually feels. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, just as nature takes every obstacle, every impediment, and works around it, turns it to its purposes, incorporates it into itself, so too a rational being can turn each setback into raw material, and use it to achieve its goal. This isn't metaphor, it's method. Exposure turns obstacles into oxygen. It transforms dread into discipline, but only if you face it on purpose. And this is where most people fall short. They want to be strong, but only in theory. They want to be fearless, but without the friction. They want peace, but without going through the fire. The Stoic understands the fire is the way, not all at once, not to destroy you, but to temper you, like steel forged by flame. So start where you are, one discomfort at a time. Wake a little earlier than your mind wants. Hold eye contact longer than your ego allows. Sit in the tension one breath past your impulse to escape. That's it. Not grand gestures, just daily resistance. Because exposure is the gym of the mind. And like any gym, you don't grow by lifting what's easy. You grow by lifting what's just beyond your comfort. Every day, a little heavier, a little longer, a little deeper, until one day, discomfort doesn't scare you anymore. It calls you forward. It becomes the compass. And in that moment, your training is no longer about resistance. It's about recalibration. You've taught your mind, I don't run from the fire. I rise with it. Section 3. Embrace friction as your teacher. Most people spend their lives avoiding friction, dodging the difficult conversation, skipping the uncomfortable workout, numbing the painful emotion. But the Stoic sees friction not as an interruption to life, but as life itself. Because friction is not punishment, it's feedback. Every resistance you feel is pointing to a place within you that's still untrained, still reactive, still fragile. And every time you lean into that resistance, not recklessly, but reflectively, you turn that moment of discomfort into a lesson. Difficulties strengthen the mind. Seneca wrote, as labor does the body, but only if you let them. Let's break this down. Say someone insults you. They question your competence, your character, your choices. In that instant, discomfort surges, heat rises in your chest, the impulse to retaliate floods your mind. Now pause. This is friction. And here is your chance. Do you react or do you receive? The friction is not random. It's revealing. It's showing you how attached you still are to approval, how sensitive you are to judgment, how shaky your sense of self still is. This is what the Stoics trained for, not to become emotionless, but to become unshakable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." It sounds simple, but it's a lifetime of work, a slow alchemy of turning external tension into internal clarity. And the only way to do that is to stay with the friction. Friction is a mirror, and the wise person looks into it. When your body resists effort, that's a mirror. It reflects your relationship with discipline. When your mind resists silence, that's a mirror. It reveals your addiction to noise. When your ego resists correction, that's a mirror. It exposes your resistance to growth. And when you stop blaming the mirror and start studying it, you become dangerous. Not violent, not hard-hearted, but composed, clear, unbothered. Because every friction point becomes a form of training, and every training rep builds true self-command. Here's the danger though, and it's subtle. Most people never stay long enough in discomfort to learn from it. They feel the pressure and immediately reach for relief. They feel the boredom and swipe into stimulation. They feel the anxiety and drown it in food, media, noise. They escape, and in doing so they rob themselves of the lesson. You can only grow in discomfort if you stay inside it. Breathe inside it. Observe it without judgment. Ask, what is this trying to teach me? The answer is always there. It might be teaching you to slow down, to speak up, to let go, to be still, to be brave. But you won't know until you listen, and you can't listen unless you linger. Friction is the fire, and presence is the forge. Imagine this: a blacksmith at his anvil, hammering molten metal. Every strike is friction, every spark is pain, but every repetition is transformation. The crude becomes refined, the weak becomes strong, the raw becomes ready. This is your mind, this is your soul, and life is your forge. But only if you let the friction in, not to burn you but to shape you. The Stoics weren't born virtuous. They weren't born calm, disciplined, or wise. They became that way by walking into the friction of life, over and over, with eyes open and heart steady. They used every setback, every inconvenience, every insult as material. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." It is not poetic metaphor, it is practical direction. Whatever stands in your way, discomfort, failure, pain, resistance, is not blocking your path. It is your path. It is your curriculum, your teacher, your gateway, but only if you stop running from it. So the next time you feel that friction, that edge, where the easy choice whispers and the hard path waits, remember this: you are being invited. Invited to observe, to endure, to understand. Invited to meet the part of yourself you've never trained. Invited to rise above the reflex and into mastery. Most people see friction and think, this is too much. The Stoic sees friction and thinks, this is my moment. Section 4. Build a daily discomfort. Ritual discomfort is not a concept. It's not a theory to admire or a quote to repost. It is a discipline. And like any discipline, it requires rhythm, structure, repetition. Without daily contact, discomfort remains a distant idea, something you'll deal with when the time comes. But by then, it's too late. If the body hasn't been trained, it trembles. If the mind hasn't been tested, it collapses. If the soul hasn't been seasoned, it breaks. This is why the Stoics turned discomfort into a ritual, something practiced, not just pondered. Because when you make discomfort part of your day, it stops being an interruption and starts becoming a foundation. So what does a daily discomfort ritual look like? It doesn't mean you go live in the mountains. It doesn't require austerity, poverty, or extremes. What it does require is intentional friction, small, consistent acts that stretch you, that test your reflex to seek comfort, that remind your nervous system, I am not fragile, I am not dependent, I can withstand more than I think. Here are a few such rituals, not prescriptions but invitations. Wake early. When your body begs for more sleep, rise with quiet strength, not to be productive, but to be in control. Cold exposure. A cold shower in the morning, brief, deliberate, teaches your nervous system to breathe through stress. Fasting. Skip a meal, not to punish yourself, but to break the illusion that you need to feel full to be stable. Silence. Sit without your phone, without noise, without distraction. Let your mind fidget, then watch it settle. Physical strain. Move your body. Run, lift, sweat, not to look better, but to feel resistance and meet it. Social courage. Speak the truth kindly, even when your voice shakes. Set the boundary. Ask the question. Show up. Stillness. When the world wants speed, you choose slowness. When your mind wants to run, you stay present. Each one is simple. Each one is uncomfortable. But over time, each one becomes a form of power. Seneca once said, "It is not that we are given a short life, but that we waste much of it." Discomfort rituals reclaim what we waste: our time, our attention, our strength. They turn ordinary moments into opportunities for resilience. They take the mundane, the morning routine, the quiet hour, the daily walk, and forge character from them. This is not self-punishment. It's self-preparation. The Stoics weren't ascetics. They didn't reject all pleasure. They simply refused to be owned by it. By rehearsing discomfort, they trained themselves to be calm in crisis, clear in chaos, and centered in solitude. Their daily discomfort rituals were like sharpening a blade, not to use it, but to know that it's always ready. And here's the deeper truth: When discomfort is no longer unfamiliar, you become dangerous in the best sense of the word, because you are no longer ruled by impulse. You are no longer afraid of effort. You are no longer a servant to preference or mood. You rise when it's time. You act when it's needed. You endure when others escape. Your strength becomes automatic, not because life got easier, but because you trained when it was hard. Let's ground this with an image. Picture a warrior sharpening his sword in the dark every morning before dawn. No one sees him. There's no applause, no spectators. But day after day, he hones the edge. Not for the fight that's already here, but for the one that might come. That's you. Each discomfort ritual is a stroke of the blade, silent, unseen, but vital, because one day, discomfort won't be voluntary. Life will bring its storm, and when it does, you won't be unprepared. You won't be overwhelmed. You'll already know the terrain. You've practiced it. So here's your challenge and your freedom. Pick one discomfort, make it daily. Track it, stay with it. Not to impress, not to punish, but to remind yourself who you are and who you're becoming. Because comfort is seductive, yes, but ritual is sovereign. And when you've built a life where discomfort is expected, even welcomed, nothing can unseat you. Section 5. Cultivate inner strength through detachment. Expounded to approximately 5,200 characters, there is a deeper layer of discomfort that few dare to touch. It's not cold, it's not sweat, it's not silence or physical strain. It's letting go. Letting go of the need for recognition. Letting go of the need to be right. Letting go of the illusion of control over people, over outcomes, over how life should unfold. This is the harder path, because the greatest source of suffering isn't pain, it's attachment. Attachment to permanence in a world of change, to approval in a world of judgment, to ease in a world that was never designed to be easy. Discomfort isn't just what we feel when we step into the cold. It's what we feel when we're asked to release control, to stop gripping so tightly, to loosen our hold on the things that once defined us. And that's where the real strength begins. This is what the Stoics meant by detachment, not emotional indifference, not apathy, not fatalism, but clarity, the ability to care deeply without being owned by what you care about. It's the freedom to be fully engaged in life without collapsing when life refuses to bend to your will. Epictetus, born into slavery, spoke this truth with radical clarity. Some things are up to us, and some are not. With that one line, he split the world in two. There is the realm of action where your mind, choices and values live. And there is the realm of fortune where everything else dances, reputation, results, relationships, weather, wealth, health and time. You train your inner fortress by mastering the first. You free your soul by releasing the second. But make no mistake, this is not easy work. It is uncomfortable to put your full effort into something and see it fail. To love someone fiercely and not be loved back. To be misunderstood and stay silent. To do what is right and receive no praise. To lose what once felt essential and still stand tall. This is the soul's cold exposure, the inner winter. It's the kind of discomfort that doesn't burn on the skin, it burns in the heart. But if you can stay with it, if you can breathe into the void that attachment leaves behind, you will find something stronger than emotion. You will find peace. Seneca gave us this: he who suffers before it is necessary, suffers more than is necessary. So much of our suffering isn't from what happens, it's from our resistance to what is. We hold the rope tighter. We brace. We expect life to deliver what it never promised: fairness, consistency, predictability, and when it doesn't, we panic. But the Stoic mind doesn't panic. It adjusts. It says, "This was never mine to hold. I did my part. Now I let go." This is the quiet power of detachment, not the absence of effort, but the absence of clinging. To bring this home, imagine a clenched fist. You've been holding onto it for so long. The relationship, the dream, the image of yourself. Your fingers ache. Your palm sweats. Your arm trembles. But still you hold on. Now, open it. Slowly, with reverence. Not out of defeat, but out of understanding. This is what the Stoics practiced. They opened their hands to life. They released their grip on what they could never guarantee, and they poured everything into what they could. Their virtue, their conduct, their choices in each sacred moment. They knew that detachment wasn't disconnection, it was anchoring yourself to what cannot be taken from you. Let's take it further. Detachment isn't just for crises, it's for everyday life. When you enter a conversation, can you listen without needing to be agreed with? When you work hard, can you give your all without demanding a specific result? When you post, speak, create, can you release the outcome and remain whole even if no one applauds? These are small discomforts, but each one is a thread in your training, because when you stop needing everything to go your way, you stop fearing when they don't. And that is true strength. Marcus Aurelius, sitting atop the Roman Empire, wrote this in the privacy of his own thoughts: "Receive without pride. Let go without attachment." He knew that the higher you rise, the more tempting it becomes to cling, to status, to comfort, to identity. But he also knew the law of nature: everything passes, and the only thing that stays is the quality of your soul. So he trained for loss. He prepared for obscurity. He practiced detachment not as a denial of love or beauty, but as a devotion to inner steadiness. Now ask yourself, what am I still gripping? What do I still think I need in order to be at peace? What would I do differently today if I wasn't afraid to lose? Sit with these questions, not to shame yourself, but to wake yourself. Because the moment you become aware of what you're clinging to, you are free to begin letting go. Not all at once, not perfectly, but slowly, consistently, daily, like breath, like training, like a ritual of release. This is the highest form of discomfort: to detach with love, to act with excellence, to release with grace. Because when you train your mind to let go of what you cannot control, you gain mastery over the one thing you always could: yourself. Section 6. Discomfort leads to freedom. If you let it, you were not born to live in a cage. Not the cage of fear, not the cage of comfort, and certainly not the cage of dependency. You were born to move freely through this world, not untouched by hardship, but unshaken by it. The Stoics believed that true freedom is not about wealth or status or even time. It's about sovereignty, the ability to govern yourself under any condition, to remain steady when life becomes chaotic, to act with clarity when others are paralyzed by fear. This kind of freedom cannot be inherited. It cannot be bought. It must be trained, and that training lives in discomfort. The paradox is simple and powerful. The more you seek comfort, the more captive you become. The more you seek discomfort, the more capable you become. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the doorway, not to pain for pain's sake, but to a deeper level of life, one defined not by how soft your path is, but by how solid your soul is. When you train in discomfort, you strip away illusion. You peel off the false layers, the craving for approval, the fear of rejection, the addiction to ease. You burn away the parts of you that tremble under pressure, and you uncover something stronger than opinion or impulse. You uncover yourself, the real you, the one forged in fire, the one who shows up when it matters most. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, soldier, once reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It sounds simple, but it's a lifetime of work, because outside events don't just pass through us, they test us. Your life will challenge you. You will be criticized, misunderstood, overlooked. You will lose things you love. You will encounter pain, physical, emotional, spiritual. But if you've trained your mind, none of it can break you. And that is the freedom Stoicism offers, not freedom from adversity, but freedom through it. The discomfort you choose prepares you for the discomfort you don't. Cold water prepares you for rejection. Hard workouts prepare you for illness. Silence prepares you for solitude. Stillness prepares you for loss. Voluntary hardship prepares you for involuntary chaos. Every discomfort you choose on purpose is an investment in future steadiness, and that is what makes the Stoic unbreakable, not because they are invincible, but because they are ready to endure, ready to adapt, ready to keep going without complaint, even when the path is unclear. This is not heroism. This is preparation. This is ritual. This is the quiet work of building a life rooted in principle instead of preference. So many people today are stuck, not because they lack opportunity, but because they've never been taught how to sit with discomfort. At the first sign of resistance, they fold. At the first feeling of unease, they reach for escape, and so their lives become narrower. Their minds become reactive. Their hearts become guarded. But the Stoic walks a different road. The Stoic invites discomfort. They wake up and face the cold, not because they enjoy it, but because it reminds them that they are stronger than their mood. They sit in silence, not because it's trendy, but because they want to hear their own thoughts without noise. They fast not because they hate food, but because they refuse to be ruled by appetite. They walk through tension not because they enjoy pain, but because they know, on the other side of resistance lives resilience, and with each repetition, they stretch their capacity. They become less dependent on things going right, and more capable of facing things when they go wrong. Imagine this. Two people stand at the edge of a storm. One panics, the other breathes. What's the difference? Training. One has met discomfort before, in small doses, in daily rituals, in chosen challenges. And so now, when the storm is real, they are already steady. They've trained not just their body, but their breath, their attention, their choices. That's the kind of strength you build when you lean in. And that's the kind of freedom that changes everything. So ask yourself now, what discomfort are you still avoiding? What edge are you afraid to walk toward? What ritual, what single small resistance could you add to your day to strengthen your soul? Because the freedom you want is not found in avoiding pain. It's found in transcending it. It's found in the cold, in the silence, in the stillness, in the delay, in the discipline, in the fire, not as punishment, but as practice. And when discomfort becomes your practice, comfort loses its grip on you. You no longer live at the mercy of external events. You are no longer a puppet of mood or reaction. You become anchored, unbothered by chaos, unshaken by noise, unafraid of change. This is the ultimate gift of Stoicism, to live in a world of uncertainty with a mind that is certain, to live among those who panic and remain calm, to experience what others call suffering and call it training. Not because you're numb, but because you're ready. Because you trained for this. Crave discomfort. Choose the hard thing. Take the colder path. Say the honest words. Show up when you want to run. Sit still when your ego screams for noise. And remember, the obstacle is the way. It always was. Conclusion. A return to the fire. At the end of every great journey, we return to where we began, but with clearer eyes, steadier breath, and a soul reshaped by the path. And this journey was never really about discomfort. It was about you. Not the version of you the world sees, polished, composed, performing, but the essential you, the one beneath the noise, beneath the comforts, beneath the armor. That version of you, the one that doesn't flinch at pain, doesn't tremble in uncertainty, doesn't collapse in silence. That version waits to be revealed, and it is discomfort that carves the way. The world will tell you to avoid anything that feels unpleasant, to numb it, skip it, soothe it, outsource it. But that world, the one obsessed with ease, is also deeply afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of being alone, afraid of rejection, effort, stillness, aging, death. The Stoic is not afraid, not because they are made of stone, but because they are made of choice. Every day, they choose to meet discomfort, not as a curse, but as a teacher, a guide, a mirror. And through this practice, this daily confrontation with the parts of life others flee from, they become something rare. Free. Free, not because life spares them, but because they no longer need to be spared. They have faced their fears in fragments, in the morning cold, in the difficult conversation, in the quiet hour, in the skipped meal, in the moment of doubt, and they have emerged intact, not untouched, but undiminished. So now, you must decide, will you continue to seek comfort, or will you choose the fire? Not the fire that destroys, but the fire that refines. Because deep down, you already know, the life you truly want doesn't lie on the other side of comfort. It lies on the other side of discipline, courage, and endurance. It's not the easy morning that changes you. It's the one where you rise while the world still sleeps, aching but committed. It's not the praise that matures you. It's the failure that teaches you how to try again, without losing heart. It's not the calm that builds you. It's the storm you breathe through without running. It's not the comfort that reveals your greatness. It's the willingness to feel discomfort, fully and without resistance, that shows you what you're made of. Let's be honest, you will forget some of what you've heard here. The world will pull you back into the stream of quick pleasures and smooth surfaces. The algorithm will tempt you to scroll. The couch will whisper your name. The voice of doubt will rise again. But if you remember just one thing, let it be this: discomfort is not your enemy. It is your entrance. Every moment you turn toward it, even slightly, you strengthen the foundation beneath your feet. You take the stairs instead of the elevator. You speak with honesty instead of hiding in ease. You leave your phone behind and walk with your thoughts. You step into the gym, the silence, the work, the stillness, not because it's easy, but because it frees you. And if you do this long enough, you become someone the world can't shake. Not because you control everything, but because you no longer need to. You've practiced surrender. You've trained intention. You've embraced discomfort like a friend. And so now, life has no leverage over you. This is the way of the Stoic. Not a philosopher lost in theory, but a warrior of the mind. Calm under fire, humble in success, rooted in what cannot be taken, the inner fortress that no thief, no critic, no tragedy can reach. This is not an ancient ideal. It is a living invitation, one you can accept right now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now. You don't need to change your whole life overnight. You just need to start walking into the fire, one step at a time. Choose the thing you've been avoiding. Sit with the feeling you always distract from. Fast for a morning. Speak the truth in a moment of fear. Wake a little earlier. Move a little harder. Listen a little deeper. This is how you rewire the nervous system. This is how you break the cage. This is how you become untouchable. There is a freedom waiting for you that most people will never know. Not because it's hidden, but because it's hard. And that's why you will find it. Because while others run, you will stay. You will breathe. You will train. You will rise. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius, now you know. The discomfort you once feared was never the end. It was always the beginning. So go, find the edge. Step into the flame, and let it burn away everything that isn't you. Because on the other side of discomfort is not just strength, it's freedom.